verses and your theme for the year is very strategic. It points to the fact that there is a great need for leadership in the church and the society. In 2015, during the elections, there were fewer voices that were saying, church, don't vote for Buhari. How many of you remember Bosu Emmanuel? The clip that went viral, isn't it? It was detailed. God spoke, said, don't vote for this man. This is a caution to the church. How many years down the line? And almost all the things he shared are what? Have become real. So even at that time, some people understood the time. They gave the church warning, but caution was thrown to the wind. In 2019, a caution also came. Don't get these guys back again, oh! But for where? It was already ingrained, and it's almost 3 years down the line, and we know where you are. But I'm very glad the church have woken up somehow. Are you hearing me? The church have woken up to a call. So your topic is just out for the moment. If you are following friends around, on Sunday, in fact, that was the church service I attended, the Family Worship Center. When Sarah, a woman, stood out and made a comment. He said, we're ready to go structureless. He said, we're ready to waste our vote. We're ready to go where there's no structure. She didn't mention a name, but she made a statement. Few days after Abioye came. Watch out tomorrow. No, on Sunday, huh? Watch out on Sunday. You will see here more voices coming. So the church, there is need for leadership. And yesterday I shared with them that whatever happens to the campus happens to society. The society goes the direction of the campus. In fact, I am not afraid of what is happening in Nigeria today. I'm afraid of what will happen tomorrow. Because the campus is a prophetic statement of what will happen in the future. Did you hear what I said? The campus is a what? It's a prophetic statement of what will happen in the future. So whatever you see happening in the chapel here is a pointer to what will happen in between 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years to come. So whatever happens to the campus, if leaders are raised on campus, we are sure that there are leaders where tomorrow, leaders in society. If we have young men and women who understand the times, then you are sure that tomorrow something will happen. You know what? I believe in Nigeria because I believe in students. And I believe in what God is able to do in the life of an ordinary student who yields himself to the Lord. This is my about 15 years of working as a campus missionary. 15 years I have seen ordinary students transformed by God, and I know where they are today. Some of them have gone to where I've never been to, and they bear witness for Jesus Christ. Some of them have veered to fields that I've never been to, and they are standing up there for Christ. And yesterday I told the workers in the church that, lecturers, you are miracle workers. Did you hear what I said? Where are the lecturers here? Are you around? Can you stand to your feet? If you are a lecturer, can you stand to your feet? People of God, I want us to clap for them. Clap for them. Clap for them. These people are miracle workers. What do you do to an ordinary student? He comes from Vandecare, enter 100 level, and after 4 years you have transformed him. Please sit down. They are making a solid investment in changing life. But I also said yesterday, now don't be our problem, not so. How can they give you somebody for 20 years and you will finish, we go to government, I will be keeping away your salary? How? Nursery, 3 years. Primary, 6 years. Secondary, 6 years. University, 4 years or 5 years. And at the end, that person goes out and is not transformed. To speak for you, it's like a father who trains a child for years, and the child goes out there and begins to fight the father. It means the father did not what? The parent didn't play their role when the child was there. But we are aware some of you are doing great work. Please keep it up. It is good to say that God created times and made every season unique. God's created season come to everyone the same, but never leaves them the same. For effective engagement, it will be good to consider the context of the text. The book of 1 Chronicles and 2 Chronicles were one book, still one book in the Jewish scripture. I believe that Ezra, the scribe, is the writer of the book of 1 and 2 Chronicles. The main audience of the book of Chronicles were exiles, people who have come out from captivity. They are returnees. They were exiles in a foreign land. God gave them up, and now they are back to their land. They were the people that the book of 1 and 2 Chronicles were written to. And the main aim, the main purpose of writing that book was to unify God's people by tracing down the Davidic line, aimed at teaching that general worship ought to be the pattern for individual and national life. So the books were written with the aim of what? Unifying the Israelites to one cause, for one purpose. It was about the unity of God's people. So in chapter 1 to 9, chapter 1 to 9 addresses genealogies of the Israelites, the ancestral tribe of Israel. So Ezra went back to dig further on their lineage, their genealogy, the various tribes, who were they, who were their people, and who are their king people. So you will see that in chapter 1 to 9. Because they were returning, they have come back from exile, they need to be returned again who they are. They need to be returned again. This is your identity. Are you a Levite? This is your work. Are you from God? This is your work. Are you from the tribe of Reuben? This is your work. This is your father's lineage. Are you from Ephraim and Manasseh? You need to know what happened to your father and your grandfather, how the hand was exchanged like this to bless, and one became ahead of the other. You see, sometimes when you read your Bible, when you get to this one gave birth to this, what do you want to do? It's just jump and pass, isn't it? You jump and pass. You see what, friends? They are part of the Bible. Each of those names represents a what? A generation. Each of those names represents a people, their thoughts, their actions. Then chapter 10 to chapter 29 addresses the reign of David, how he became king over all of Israel, how he brought back the ark to Jerusalem, David's military exploits, and his plan for rebuilding the temple. I know what chapter 12, our text for study, where our team text is taken from, is between chapter 11 and chapter 13. You see, see, anytime you are looking at the scriptures, context is very critical. So chapter 11, in chapter 11, we see all of Israel gathered to make David king. Can we go to 11 verse 1? Chapter 11 verse 1. Chapter 11 verse 1. Then all Israel went where? To David at where? Hebron, and told him, we are all what? Members of your family. Next verse. For a long time, even when Saul was our king, you were the one who led Israel. And the Lord your God has told you, you will be the shepherd of my people Israel. You will be their what? Their leader. So in chapter 11, we saw how the whole of Israel gathered and told David, you are our king. We knew when you conquered Goliath. In chapter 13, go to chapter 13, so that you will see what comes before and what comes after. David consulted with all his officials, including the generals and captains of his army. Next verse. Then he addressed the entire assembly of Israel as follows: if you approve, and if it is the will of the Lord our God, let us send messages to all the Israelites throughout the land, including the priests and the Levites, in their town and pasture lands. Let us invite them to come and join us. Next verse. Can we read this together? It is time to do what? To bring back the ark of our God. For we neglected it during the what? The reign of Saul. So in chapter 13, we see David taking the first step to bring back the ark. So it was a period. So chapter 12 was a period of transition in Israel, from one king to the other. A king that was asked for by people to a king that was chosen by God. Did you get that? King Saul was asked for by the people. God told them, this is the kind of king you are asking for. He said, yes, give it to us. But David was a king chosen by God, a king after what? God's heart. So there was a transition from the old generation to the new what? Generation. It was a period where God was bringing back his people together and restoring their dignity and oneness. It was a period of brokenness, both at individual and the national life of the people of Israel. Imagine a situation where your king invested the bulk of his life for over 10 years pursuing the one that God has chosen to take over from him. You know, immediately God anointed David as king, Saul lost focus. He lost focus. What was his non-target? He was after the life of who? David. Envy entered. Instead of leading God's people, he was chasing God's servant. Instead of fighting the enemy, he was fighting God's child. How relevant is this text to us today? We are in a time of transition, both at individual and our national life as a nation. A time where we have brokenness everywhere. A time where we have many who are displaced everywhere because of their faith and because of who they are. Anytime I drove into Makodi, I'm always greeted at the entrance in Daudu by what? IDPs. In fact, even before Daudu, there's one primary school there. The IDPs are there, staying in classes, children everywhere, no house. Friends, I have visited that camp, not once, not twice. And then the other camp that have the building, and then the other camp on their way in North Bank, isn't it? How many of you have gone to that camp in North Bank? Friends, I've gone there. We have done training for them there. I've interacted with them. I've had the pains. I was in Southern Kaduna 2 weeks ago. I met with the IDPs, homeless, in pain, lost their houses, lost their farms. They can't go to their ancestral homes. Pains everywhere. That's the kind of time we're in. For over 2 months, people captured through the train attack are still in captivity. One of them is one of our partners in NIFES. That old woman, they say she was classmate to the vice president. That's a woman that was given to missions. Up to today, they are still where? In captivity. What about the ones that were kidnapped? One of my former students was kidnapped last week. They have to pay over $1 million to get them out. Is it kidnapping? Is it killings? Everywhere you turn, we have them in our nation. We are in a time where there is need for a unifying leader that unite the body of Christ and our nation together. On our campuses, we are moving from physical campuses to virtual campuses, to virtual learning centers. Schools are evolving and things will never be the same again. There is also a movement from one generation to the other. The silent generation are going. The baby boomers are going. Generation X are becoming older. Gen Y, the millennials, are becoming older. Gen Z have taken the center stage, and the alphas are coming in their power, and they will change the way things are done. Do you know this generation I just mentioned? How many of you know them? Do you know baby boomers? Do you know Generation X? What about Generation Y? Do you know them? Even when I don't know yourself. Now they are trouble, this Gen Z. See them everywhere. And the alphas. Okay, the alphas are those who are born from 2010 to 2025. Any child between that age, they are called Generation Alpha. Hey guys, these people, they are troublers of Israel. I'm telling you, see them. Those are small girls. All of them are alphas. The oldest of them is 12 years now. But you know what? Those guys, they are not only born inside computer is born inside them. And the ones before them are those who were born from 1995 to 2010. How do we call them? Generation Z. They call them Gen Z. They have changed everything. They don't go to market to shop like before. They buy things online. Whether you like it or not, you have to adapt to their point. Have you seen them in a voting center going to register for their PVC? They are disruptive guys. They disrupt things. They are not normal guys. And you know what? They are very frugal with money. They know how to hold money. Gen Z. They are guys who want to make impact. So at young age, 18, 20 years, they are already thinking of what to create to make impact. Some of them are NYC, some of them are in the world of work, some of them are there making a difference already. What about millennials? Millennials are those who were born from 1981 to 1995. Those are the first set of generation that we call what? The digital natives. They are called what? Digital natives. So, millennials, Gen Z, Alpha, all of them are called what? Digital natives. And then if you are born from 1965 to 1980, Generation X. What do we call them? That's my generation. We are digital immigrants. We are what? Analog. We are foreigners in their world. But my pain is that some of the digital natives, they are behaving like us. And then if you are born, generation down the line, baby boomers. The other one, they are called what? Baby boomers. And then their generation from 1921 to around 1945, they are called the silent generations. Most of them are older and they are dying now. So the campus have these generations in it. So you have the boomers, you have the Generation X, Generation Y, and Gen Z where? On the campus. So if you don't understand how they think, how they operate, you will not be relevant. Much more because we are also transiting, moving from one degree of glory to the what? To the other. So the text in consideration is very relevant to our time. It's very relevant to our time. So in looking at this text, we'll be looking at three things. 3 points of engagement. Number one, discovering the signs of the time, or discovering the seasons of the time. Number two, tomorrow we'll be looking at what? Developing solutions for the times. We'll take a look at how did these men become mighty men? What was it that David did to them? Can you give me a second Samuel? No, 1 Samuel 22. 1 Samuel 22. I hope that's the right text. 22. Look at them. Look at these people. Samuel. So David left God and escaped to the cave of where? Adullam. Soon his brothers and other relatives what? Joined him there. Next verse. Then others began coming. Men who are what? In trouble. In debt. Who were just discontented until David was their leader of about how many? 400 men. Those were the men that became the mighty men of David. People who are in debt, people who are distressed, people who are in trouble. How did David pick them? And suddenly they became what? Mighty men. Then when David said, oh, how I wish I will drink water, they brought him and brought water for him. And David said, how can I drink this? This is the blood of what? Man. How did they become like that? So tomorrow we'll be looking at how do we develop this kind of leaders. But today we're discovering what? The brokenness. Men who are in debt, men who are distressed, men who are dissatisfied. And friends, look at Nigeria, look at Benue State, they are everywhere. Young men and women who have no job and they have turned to different things for survival. Then on Sunday we'll be looking at deploying solutions for the times. It's not enough to develop solutions. It is also good to do what? Deploy them. How do we deploy solutions that we engage our campuses for times like this. So today, discovering the times. It is the farmer who understands the seasons that will prepare his farm to get ready for planting. Time in our text means eras, periods, epochs, generations. But how do we know the seasons or signs of the times? In history, there are things that are called the fundamentals of history. What do we call them? The fundamental of what? Of history. Number one of the fundamental of history is people. Number one is what? People. So if you have studied any period, look at the people in that what? In that period. Or they are sometimes called the what? The actors. The actors of that period. Then number second, in the fundamental of history, is periods. People, periods, that's what? Dates. Dates. When did this happen? When did this take place? You see, time is very critical. How many of you have read those analyses online? Different points in Nigeria that a revolution had always taken place. From independence, the first was in 1963, when Nigeria became a what? A republic. And that revolution was led by a northern man. So the prime minister was who? Sir Abubakar what? Tafawa Balewa. 30 years after, when was that? 1993. What happened that year? There was an election. You remember? Who won the election? MK Abiola, isn't it? 30 years after, there was a revolution, and a Yoruba man was at the center of the revolution. He won. He didn't give him the presidency, and that affected Nigerian political setting. 2023, 30 years after, what is going on? There is a revolution what? Going on, and an Igbo man is what? At the center. It's a whole cycle in the story of Nigeria. So in looking at times, periods, dates are very critical. So if you are looking at your time vis-a-vis your story, look at the various time the strategic things happen to you. Look at the people that play significant roles in your life. That's how to write your biography. Hello? Is it your biography, your autobiography, or your memo? Then the next fundamental of history is places. Places. Strategic locations where things happen. Can you talk to your neighbor and tell them one strategic place in your life? Where were you born? That was a special place now. Some of you, they born you for village like me. Some of you, they born you for Macaulay town. Some of you in army barracks. Some of you where? Where did they born you? Where they give back to you? So places are very strategic. And you know what? The campus is one strategic place in the agenda of God. BSU is one strategic place in the agenda of Benue State. I told them yesterday, whatever happened to BSU affects Benue State. The fourth fundamental of history is programs, events. What happened at what place? actions, events that happens in such moments. 4 critical things to look at when you are looking at times. What's the first one? People. What's the second one? What's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? Programs, events. What happened? What led to what? So looking at the text we are looking at, 1 Chronicles chapter 12. Who are the key players there? And I want us to start with discovering God in the times. God in the times, in terms of the characters, players. Key players are the people. Key characters that plays significant roles. One character in that text is God. A generation relationship with God will tell you more about the state of things in that time. Whatever the leaders of a generation make central will take the center stage in that generation. If God is their focus, God will become the what? The center stage. If money is their focus, money will become the what? The center stage. So whatever the leaders emphasize takes the lead. That's why we're looking at God. In the times, where was God? In the book of Chronicles, in this portion of our engagement. Look at chapter 10, verse 13 to 14. See what became of God and people's relationship with God in that portion. Chapter 10 of 1 Chronicles, verse 13 to 14. Verse 13 says, Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord and even consulted mediums for what? For guidance. Saul died because he was what? Unfaithful to the Lord. Look at the Lord there. Is Yahweh in capital. He failed to obey the Lord's command, and he even consulted a medium. Kale Prakaya. Saul died as a leader because he was unfaithful to God. So in this time, it was a time when there was unfaithfulness to God. It was a time where men no longer hearkened to the voice of God. And it has become a time where men were consulting mediums. Chapter 13, verse 1 to 3. Le practical shapalibalo shadaba. And kotuli masita le katulea. He said to the world assembly of Israel, if it seems good to you, and if it is the will of the Lord our God, let us send far and wide to the rest of our brothers and throughout the territory of Israel, and also the priests and Levites who are with them in their town and pasture land, to come unto us. Let us bring the ark of our God back to us. For we did not inquire of him during the reign of Saul, for we neglected during the what? The reign of David. So this period was a time where there was a neglect of God. A lot of talks about God, but there was a neglect of God. So this was a time when leaders were unfaithful to God. A time where they were not keeping the word of the Lord. A time where leaders were consulting mediums for guidance. It was a time when the ark of God was neglected. The ark was the place where God's presence dwelled. The ark was a carrier of the presence of Yahweh. And today, who are the temple of the Lord? Who are the temple of the Lord? Who are the church? You and I are the church. Friends, there is a neglect of the church. Today, we have emphasis on building cathedrals, emphasis on building structures, emphasis on things, and no emphasis of discipleship, no emphasis of building men to become carriers of the King of Kings. The ark was neglected. In fact, it was abandoned. But when the new man came, he said, we must go back, we must go back, we must go back. Friends, today we are not different from these times. We are in a time where the church is not faithful to the teaching of God's word. We have a false teaching going everywhere. Have you heard the teachings where some men says we need to learn from the animals how to sow seed? Rema. You see, what I want to show you, there are mysteries of seed sowing. Have you read the book of Daniel? You remember when Daniel was sent where? To the lion's dens. Gaya. The lion understands the mystery of sowing seed. They say no, Daniel is one person. We cannot eat Daniel is one person. This is a seed. Let's sow this seed back to God. Friends, lions, animals know how to sow seed. So they sowed back Daniel to God as their seed offering. What goodness! They got many returns. They got many returns. They got many returns. Friend, sow your Daniel back to God as a seed, and I tell you, you have 100% return. Your Daniel is not your only car. Your Daniel is not your money, your account. When you sow your Daniel, God will give you in 100 folds. Brother, wait till you have that text to do with money. But that was taught from the pulpit as revelation, as insight. Hey, as insight, as rema. What about the one that read the book of Acts? The disciples were in one place and in one accord. He said, I hear, accord. Brethren, accord. I see all of you having on the accord everywhere. That was the time the guy on the accord was coming out. So all of you, God is telling me, you receive on the accord. Receive. See, this one I was there. This one I was there. Our fellowship in Bauchi. You know that time, brethren will come and talk about offering. How they will change their people. So the brother came out. And then open the text in Genesis. Where Joseph's brother went to buy grain, isn't it? You know, Joseph said they should put their money back. Isn't it? So they put it back in the sack. One translation says when they go back home, the Bible says they emptied their sack and sold money. The brother said, brethren, empty your sack. Empty your sack. And you will see money. Empty your sack. See, friends, it's a time where false teachings are going on everywhere. One way to know that false teachings everywhere is in the lifestyle of the people. Come, if the kind of conferences going on in Nigeria, even this Makodi, you know Makodi is a place where people come for pilgrimage. spiritual pilgrimage. Isn't it? They go to peace house and they come to where? The reigning one now. Remnant, isn't it? You know how many young people travel? Some of them every month to come to Makodi. But how is the lifestyle like in Makodi? How is lifestyle like? That tells you wherever the word of God is properly preached and obeyed, there is change of life. Even our discipleship centers have become another thing. Where is the life of Christ? You see people who have followed discipleship for years, their own life is not representing the life of Christ. Men who are following teaching this weekend, they are here, they are there, no change in their life. What about the wrong prophecies going on? There was one guy that prophesied that us to be called by strike on 17 July. Have you ever heard it? 17 July. 17 June. Thank you, 17 June. You see, these young guys are terrible guys. So this is forget them all. They're terrible guys. They went and dropped the clip. He said, if there was one woman, the way the man prophesied, she ran the front and dropped her money. So they came and snapped her picture and said, this woman must be compensated back her money. Because the prophecy did not come to me. What about the man that came out and said, Buhari is the 15th president? Yours truly will be the 16th president. Thus says the Lord. A firebrand prophet. What about the one that says, he mentioned the day, that they write it down, that the second will be the first. The second will be the first. And when they finished APC primaries, he started tweeting another name. Friends, we are in a time where the word of God has been put aside. Philosophies of men have taken the center stage. Now, it's no longer God said, it is my man of God said. We can fight for our man of God. I hope you don't have the God of Good News chapter. Today we have the God of this man of God. The God of our commission. The God of our commission. But that God cannot change your life. That's the time we live in. He said, yes, in all these times, you know what? My father. Verse 18 of 1 Chronicles 12. God's spirit was still at work. Hello? In the midst of chaos, in the midst of the times when everywhere have neglected God, the act was put aside. God's spirit was still at work. Then the spirit came upon Amasai, who later became a leader among the 30, and he said, we are yours, David. We are on your side, son of Jesse. Peace and prosperity be with you, and success to all who help you. For your God is the one who helps you. Just like Genesis 1. When everywhere there was chaos. There was chaos. The Bible said the Spirit of God was what? Was hovering over the bed of the sea. Until when God came and said what? Let there be light. So friends, God has never left himself without a witness. In the midst of darkness, God's Spirit is still there. One of the major characteristics of Gen Z is a hatred for God. There is a deep hatred for God in Gen Z, because they have not seen that God manifesting in the life of those who are going ahead of them. So today we have in our campuses young men and women who do not care about God nor His ways. Young men and women who are open to the realities of their times and are saying no to God. Young men and women who have the form of godliness but denying the power therein. In Matthew 24, verse 1 to 14. In verse 4, Jesus says, "For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of war. But see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still yet to come. Nations will rise against nations. That's the time we're in. How come Russia will just wake up one day and say they will cross where? Ukraine. See, I know believers there. People we have had programs together. How their families were crushed. The mother and the small child how to escape to Germany. The father and the boy stay back in Ukraine to fight. And Nigeria in that country have the largest church in Europe, Sunday Television. The largest, and the church is 99% white. Nigerian, he got there as a young student at 19 years old on scholarship. By 33, he has built the largest church in Ukraine that was affecting the nations. In fact, Putin declared him persona non grata in Russia because that brother was calling their men to God. That's the man that began with picking alcoholics, training them by through scripture, transforming them. So Ukraine, the church was dictating who become what? Led by Nigerians. Can you look at yourself and say you have power? God has deposited many in you. And Nigerian led that. He turned 55 years this year. You know what? He was a target. In fact, the US government have to tell him he needs to leave Ukraine because he was one of the people who are targeted by Putin to be killed. Wars, nations will rise against nations. Let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 to 9. And that will give us summaries of how people and how God looks at in our time. It says, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. Can we read it together? You shall also remember in the last days there will be what? There will be what? Very difficult times. For people will do what? Only love themselves and their money. So coughing at God, disobeying to their parent, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving, unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. They will be cruel and have no interest on others' good. They will betray their friends, be reckless, be puffed up with pride, and lovers of what? Pleasure rather than lovers of God. They will act as if they are religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. You must stay away from people like this, friends. This is the time we're in. This is the time you are seeking to understand. It is a time where there is hatred for God. People love money more than God. Even in the church, money is a driver. Money is a driver. People are going after God now because of what they can make. Money is a driver. The second point I want to share is people in the times. Who were the people in that text? One was King Saul. Second was David, the anointed king. You have the leaders from the different tribes. The 12 tribes of Israel, the warriors, God's people in God's place. King Saul was a man who has lost touch with God. King Saul was a leader who has lost touch with God. King Saul was a leader who has lost focus, who has lost his priority. The people were no longer his concern. King Saul was a leader who was not given opportunity to the younger one to lead. David was around 17 years old when he was anointed as king. It took him how many years? 13 years old before he ascended the throne, because there was a leader who was insecure. Today we have a time where the older generation, they are afraid of the younger generation. I hope that's the story of this chapter. The chapel should be happy. Give these young guys in the chapel, allow them preach, see their mistakes, correct them, guide them, allow them lead prayers, allow them lead Bible studies, allow them engage and see their mistakes. There was a time I saw a poster of PFN conference, and I asked myself, which one be this one? The speakers were Adeboye, Oyedepo, and what again? It was before that long that in fact I don't know whether God answered my prayer and the Lord came. They come to the conference. And all of us, I said, which one be this one? This older Baba, they no longer allow the young guys to come up there. You know what? When that conference was cancelled, in the next one they brought out, guess who are their speakers? Paul and Ezra. The younger ones were the ones they brought forth, and the older ones are withdrawing. That's what it should be. So we are in a time where parents are afraid of their children. Children cannot trust their parents. Parents hardly trust the capacity of their children. One of my friends in Port Harcourt, his daughter was in final year. They cannot allow her go out of the house to market in Port Harcourt. I sat him and his wife and said, what are you doing, man of God? And as a pastor, guess the way God will not deal with him. She graduated. Do you know where she's serving now? She's in Sokoto. He did everything to redeploy her. It did not work. From Abuja, it did not work. She went to camp, it did not work. I told her, allow this girl to be there. She's there. He still wants to dictate for her what she will do. I said, Oga, allow her. Let her grow. In the midst of it, dog came and beat the girl. In family house, MCCL. I said, you see now. So when I called the girl, I said, how are you doing? She said, I'm making new friends. Her father wanted to learn how to play here. I told her, which one do you want to learn? When we talk about she want to learn data science. I said, go and check online. They are free to say, go and learn there. So I called her and said, allow this girl. You know what? Chapter, you need to know, some parents are the ones schooling their children. How can a child be in university? It's his parent that will bring their things to school. Arrange the thing. There was one we saw. They were fetching water from the house to take to her in school. When clothes become dirty, they will come and collect and take it to the dry cleaner. I said, you are destroying that girl. But see, that's the generation we are in. So I used to ask people, I said, come. When we were in secondary school, we carried our things on our heads. Sir, there was this metal box. How many of you remember? You carry on your head to school. In fact, my friends in boarding school, I entered truck. No tractor. I entered to the camp of Command Junction and tractor. My parents did not know the school at all. I went there. Young boy, less than 17 that time. I traveled But at our time, your child is 15. He said, these children, let's help them. Let's help them. You are destroying them. That's the time we live in. Parents who are not pure. But we also have what? The lives of David in that text. Young men who despite the challenge, they are standing. Come imagine, at 17 years, they were after your life. At 17 years, David had a skill. Amen? David could play and demons go out. At 17 years, this young boy has killed what? A Goliath. You, how old are you? How old are you? And you are still playing like a small boy. You have not even killed one small thing. What skill you have? David at that age had killed a lion. He has killed the Bible says what? Lions. He said, I have killed lions with my bare hands. What kind of a young man are you? 17 years old. At 17, he was running from cave to cave. Hello? I know what? Rascals gathered before him. And after 13 years, he turned them to mighty men. Who told you you are a young person? How many persons are you raising? David raised debtors, raised travelers, raised brothers to great men and women. Within the period they stayed with him, he understood them. So when David shook his heart like this, the guys were ready to risk their lives. So even in that time, there were young men who say, whatever it takes. I know what? David was also a young man who respected God's anointing. Hello? He came face to face with Saul, but he didn't kill him. In fact, anyone who tried anything on Saul, David will kill them. In fact, at the time when he caught the garment of Saul, he went and cried and cried and cried. But today, you have young men, because of small grace, you come and say, apostle to this. You are standing before Father that God has helped. Because they are not carrying title, they still carry their Bible. He said, do you know the grace of God in my life? Which grace you get? David, despite his anointing, despite being chosen by God, was a young man who was respectful of the grace in elders. So in our text, we saw the lives of David. In our text, we saw leaders who were warriors, skilled men, men who can handle spears with their left hand and with their right hand. I hope you know that isn't it? Skilled men, warriors, that one of them can chase 10 to 1,000. You know, I told you the money used for Saul, he used his anointing. For Solomon, he used his anointing to marry 1,000 women. But here again, another one officer can handle 1,000. 1,000 men, he can handle them. What are you using your strength? So that was a time. So it was a time that Israel had great men and women of potential. But yet they were running away from Goliath. You get that? See, when the leadership is terrible, potentials die. Potentials remain dormant. Imagine those guys. They have said you are useless, you are debtors, you have no money. But David picked them. He picked them and saved them. Warriors, every tribe had warriors. You know what? All those eagles you saw, they are men. They did not mention their women. Because in Israel, they count men. And the men they count, you must have reached how many years? 20 years old. That's the age you enter the age of battle. Friends, so in the text, you see leaders bringing different things to the table. But there was a family that brought in something. and they brought in what? Intelligence. The Bible says men of Issachar. Do you know Issachar? Issachar was a son born to a lineage of do you know Rachel? The wife of David, the wife of Jacob. Who was the other one? Leah, isn't it? Despise Leah, Issachar was from her lineage. Issachar was the son of Leah. You know how they gave birth to Issachar? In fact, the man came and married Rachel, the love of his life. He now abandoned Leah. You are not my interest. But one day, Leah's children went to hunt for they went to hunt for things. My great brother. And then they came back home. And then Rachel said, "Can I taste of your marmalade?" Leah said, "You want to taste of my marmalade? Tonight you must allow God to come to my place." You get that? It was that night that Issachar was conceived. So Issachar means a reward. A reward for my grace. So Issachar was a child that came from that lineage. Although not honored, although not known by the husband, but she gave birth to an Issachar who understood the times and knew what Israel ought to do. They were facing, these guys understood. They understood the people. They understood the culture. And then they had a strategy for engagement. I told you young person in the morning, one of the things that is lacking in the church is the lack of spiritual intelligence. Lack of what? Spiritual intelligence. You see, spiritual intelligence is that when you connect with God, something comes down. Hello. Many of us are spiritual without anything to show for it. Moses fasted and prayed for 40 days. He came down with the 10 commandments that have been made. Jesus fasted and prayed through the night. He came back and chose 12 disciples that had continued to turn the world. They turned the world upside down for God. Amen. When you go to tarry before God, what are you bringing back? Look at him and say, the last time you prayed. Look at him and say, the last time you prayed. What did God tell you? What is it that God gave to you to bring to our world? See, there are many books here, many books inside you guys. Many books, many songs, many ideas deposited in you. When you go to God in prayer, what do you collect? You draw ideas there and bring to the world. You see me? I've composed songs. Yes, I've gone to the studio. I've produced about 6 songs. My voice may not look like you guys. It may not look like it, but guys, friends, it is time when you connect with God truly. Songs come. Scripts come. I've written about 23 books. And there are more on the pipelines. When I stay in the place of prayer, ideas come. Ideas come. Solution issues come. When you carry there, what did they carry come to our world? What do you bring? One of the songs I got was when I was on campus 2003, before that crisis. As God was preparing for the time. As long as I live, I will praise His name. As long as I live, I will worship my God. The next day crisis came. Whether I was going to worship Him, guys, I did. And I'm still serving Him. When you look at the places, my time is up. You see Ziklag. You see Hebron. You see Mount Gilboa. You see River Jordan. Ziklag was very strategic. Ziklag was a place where David went to stay. That was a place where David ruled for 16 months. That was a place where David went to join the Philistine, the king of Achish, to fight. And when they were on their way back, they have taken over their women. David tried. The Bible says he strengthened himself in the Lord. Ziklag was a place of succor for David. Ziklag was a place of pain for David. Ziklag was a place where David and his commander can never forget when their women were taken away. Ziklag was a place where David had the Lord. Should I pursue them? Go say pursue them. Ziklag. What about Hebron? Hebron is very key in the Hebrew Bible. Abraham have several encounters at Hebron. It was Abraham that God promised that your people would inhabit this place, and it happened in the time of David. It happened in the time of David. When David became king, you know where? David was anointed king. And where? At Ziklag. David was anointed king at Ziklag. David was made king, not Ziklag, at Hebron. That was where the whole of Israel gathered and said, let David become our king. Hebron was a place where God perfected the grace of God. Hebron is a place where God's promises come to bear. After 30 days of running, the promise comes to bear. So Ziklag is very key. Ziklag was very strategic. Ziklag was like a take-off point to David before he got to Jerusalem. So I can say Ziklag is like the campus where students learn to lead before they get into where they will do what? They will live tomorrow. Hebron is a place where they are commissioned for leadership. They are trained to lead. They are trained to lead. They are empowered before they move out there. Ziklag, Hebron rather, is a place where God's promise comes to fruition. And you know what? In that text, you will see systems in the times. Systems in the times. You will see a system of leadership. You will see a system of documentation. How many know that what we are reading? They documented everything with a number. You will see data science playing out there. You will see data. Data is a new oil. Many of us don't keep data. In the Bible, you will see documentation. It was a discipline. They documented everything. Do you have a system of documentation? Do you document what God is doing in your life daily? Do you have a journal? How many of you get a journal? Diary? Raise your hand well. Oh my. Thank you to our Father that I'm seeing your hand up. Please don't give up. Keep your journals neat. Those are the things that people will know about God's dealings in your life. There is a system of family. There's a system for capacity building. There's a system for defense. There's a system for security. There's a system in that text. We'll see them there. What about our time? Friends, as we round up this evening, the times are terrible, but also the times are transforming. If you see them as trouble times, then you will enjoy the transformation going on. There are terrible times, but there are moments of transition. Let us pray. This is our season. Problems are everywhere, but opportunities are everywhere. God is saying, who are the men of Issachar that will give direction to the church? Who are the Davids that will stay true to lead the next generation of Israelites? Who are the Davids that will usher in the ark of the covenant? Who are the Davids that will return people back to worship of God? Can you pray? Can you pray, friends? Pray. Ask God, say, God, let me be the answer. Let me truly be an income of your love. Let me be the answer. Let me be the answer. Here am I. Can you pray? God, say, God, let me be the answer in this generation and in these times. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Can the choir give us a good song to connect with this time? Just thank God. Just thank God. Just appreciate it.
how you've taken us positively to the Book of Chronicles. You have helped us to a purpose to to understand the times we have found ourselves in. Father, we plead with you. You help us with the right response to what you are sharing, you are saying to us. This matter is a build-up. As we continue tomorrow, keep the matter in our hearts, so that tomorrow we see what the command from this point that you have begun to raise with us. Thank you, Father. Refresh your servants, strengthen them the more. In Jesus' gracious name we pray. Amen. Please, you can sit down. I want to appreciate God for